Hello, everybody. DMGeezerjim back for another episode. We are continuing our series on Planescape for this one. As I've talked about a little bit, if you're new to the series, welcome. If you've been here for a little bit of redundancy, and I apologize. 5th edition Planescape launched. It came with a really good book about Sigil, a really good book about the Outlands, some information about the gate towns leading to the outer planes, and at that point you were instructed to look at the Dungeon Master's Guide, which provides nothing on the outer planes. So I consider myself a Planescape fan. I really enjoy the setting. I love the concept of the outer planes, the added dimensions, the added areas of adventure that we get access to. Unfortunately, not a lot of access given as part of the initial 5th edition launch. So I want to take the time, apologies, to give us a tour of the outer planes. We're going to start with the information that the book gave us, in which case is the 5th edition. Let me get my art up. Apologies there. We will be referring to the Planescape Adventures in the Multiverse, 5th edition publication. Chapter 3, the Outlands. Again, I'm going gate town to gate town. We're going to start at the gate town and then talk about the associated outer plane. If you're new to the series, I started at Acheron, which is basically 9 o'clock, and we're going clockwise around it. Acheron was the representation of lawful neutrality with an evil tendency. Dictatorship, military expansion, that kind of a thing. Lawful neutral was the last episode. That was Automata, home of the Modrons. So today we're going to do Fortitude to Arcadia. This is lawful neutral with a good tendency. Information provided, like I said, we're going to start with what we have here. It's a place of ordered beauty, identical trees, lined polished boulevards, and neat rows, and each uniformly trimmed blade of grass in its public parks glisten with a single drop of morning dew. Fastened to Arcadia, a plane of law and virtue, Fortitude combines the rigidity of Automata with the puritanical attitudes of Excelsior, which is the gate town not too far away, creating a perfect chamber of homogeneous moral rectitude. Long story short, bunch of fancy words, bunch of big fancy words that are basically describing this as a militarized commune. Charitable people who pursue purity to a fault. Locals will always appear friendly, benign, hospitable, but they fixate on flaws. They fixate on behavior. They fixate on your appearance. Why do you have devil horns? Because the people in Arcadia, the people in the gate town of Fortitude, as it leads to Arcadia, truly believe that the corrupting influence of chaos and evil entering their plane is what will cause problems. We are here for the greater good. The greater good is the overriding thing. Everything about our plane, our town, our structures, they are structured in such a way to support the greater good at all times, even to the sacrifice of individuality, to the sacrifice of your own personal desires. You need to put yourself goes second. The greater good goes first. That's kind of the attitude that takes place in Arcadia and Fortitude, the gate town. Big big green flaming flame is the gate to go through. Minimal difficulties to get through the gate at Arcadia, as opposed to the gate at Automata or the gate at Bedlam. Excuse me. Cursed when we were going into Acheron. So the three of them are similar. Let me pop up some. You know what? We're going to use a good map. Sorry. Here it is. So, excuse me. Regus is where we started our tour. This is lawful neutral with an evil bend. The next stop on our wheel was Automata. This is pure lawful neutrality. Order for order's sake. Nothing but order. Law for law's purpose. And then we're now looking at Fortitude, which connects to Bitopia. This is lawful neutral with good tendency. The law exists for the greater good. Nothing is more important than the greater good. And if you don't fall in line with the greater good, you must be evil. That's the easiest way to, I know it's a summary, but that's really the way they look at it. Your appearance, your behavior, is everything. If you show any flaws, then your flaws can infect the purity and the community aspect of the plane, so you're now an enemy of the plane. Ironically, Fortitude is probably the closest you have to a dictatorship on the good side of the wheel. Individuality comes second to the greater good in every situation, every step of the way. So that's the thing to understand. The town itself is not very big. We're going to flip over to the Player's Primer to the Outland, a second edition book. If you own this one, then you already own all the pertinent content that came with the 5th edition book. So, save yourself a couple bucks if you want to. If you want it, it's certainly complimentary. There's very little between 2nd edition and 5th edition that counteracts each other. Most everything is either doesn't mention it in regards to 5th edition versus 2nd edition, or is supportive of the older content. So, again, if you're a 2E guy wondering about playing 5E Planescape and you have all of your 2E stuff, you're ready to go. You're more ready to go than 5E. So yeah. So let's see what the original 2nd edition version of Fortitude is. First and foremost, it's a lot more, considerably more information given alongside the gate town for Fortitude in the 2nd edition book. Population of 5,000. Talks a little bit more about the geometry of the city, the geography, I should say, the layout, as far as there being a large wall that curves around it to make a perfect oval. One side is the gate to Arcadia and a big temple. The other side is a stadium, and in between is this perfectly ordered town. The trees all grow in perfect lines. The grass is perfectly cut. Everything about this town is as ordered as Automata. Make no bones about that. People might be a little bit more friendly. Certainly a lot less Modrons here, so communication should be easier. But emphasize as a dungeon master, when you're describing Fortitude and certainly Arcadia, you need to be focused on order and beauty. Okay, the people in Arcadia also focus on appearance. If you look evil, you must be evil. If you look ugly, you must carry ugly with you. You're walking in here in torn up, raggedy clothes. That shows a chaotic bend. That shows a lack of care for your appearance or maintenance. That's a flaw. So yeah, the people in Fortitude, the people in Arcadia are very, very. Think of it as a land of Kevins and Karens, man. For lack of a better term, that's the easiest way to describe it in modern terms. Every person every female is a Karen, every dude is a Kevin, and the entire plane of Arcadia is filled to the brim with these folk. Not a fun place to be. Now, one of the challenges I've had in some of the other outer planes, especially of the Good Bend, is getting into a fight, getting into a combat encounter, getting into something, akin to a Dungeons and Dragons adventure. When you're sitting in the pure land of neutral good, no one really cares, man. As long as you ain't hurting nobody, you're good to go, bro. It's all good. It's hard to get into a conflict. Fortitude subverts that because the judgmental nature of the population, because their primary focus is on acting good and appearing good and doing everything you can to show those around you how good you are in their support. There's a lot, this is definitely a plane in the city of people wearing the two masks, the mask in public versus the mask in private. Dungeon Master, you can go as far or deep into that as you want, but always remember we're still dealing with an outer plane. There's a lot of mechanisms that you come in there and you're chaotic evil, but you're pretending to be lawful neutral with good tendencies. The plane will root you out. As a matter of fact, definitions are given that the natives of the plane of Arcadia have the ability to know alignment. Just they can look at you and know what you are. So therein lies that rub. To be there and be good, you have to be good. Because if you walk in, you're looking smugly and nasty and scraggly, they're going to know alignment and go, well, this dude's chaotic fucking neutral. You got no business being here. Take your ass to limbo or we'll send you there. So it's a very militant, non-tolerant society, both in the gate town of Fortitude and in the plane itself. Okay? So, there's a confessional, there's a temple. Fortitude is listed as an okay town. You can get most of your needs met here as long as your party's not dinking around trying to get into the portal. It's not nearly as hard to move around in Mechanus as it is in Mechanus. Your party won't need travel permits. They won't need a license. They won't need reasons to go wherever they need to go. As long as they're behaving themselves in a good, lawful way, They might just get some tisks from the local Karen or get someone looking down their nose at them from the local Kevin. But outside of that, the Gate Town of Fortitude is a pretty standard, calm town. There's a couple little things that go on underneath it, but nowhere near as to the depth that we had going on in Automata as far as the underneath or the underside, whatever they wanted to call it for the 5th edition. That's happening within the plane, itself. Now, the 2nd edition version of Fortitude talks about that the beings within the Gate Town are trying to shift the Gate Town to become part of Arcadia. There is a little bit of rumor in the current chant, as it were, in the 2nd edition book that it's already happened. That your parties, that it's the Gate Town that your party goes to on Fortitude is a reproduction of the old Fortitude because the real Fortitude already moved into Arcadia. Do with that what you want, but it's just another example of if the behavior of a Gate Town mimics the plane, the outer plane that it's attached to, well enough and long enough, it will eventually detach from the Outlands, the land of neutrality, and become one with its associated plane. That happens a lot. It happens a lot more. It's a pretty often happening thing. So kind of be ready for that. So that's really it. Glorium, I'm not looking. Fortitude, there's not a lot going to it. You're just going to really use this to set the stage for the attitudes, the personalities, and the potential conflicts within Arcadia, okay? Not a whole lot going on out here. And just so we know, from a 5th edition standpoint, Arcadia is not even part of the Turn of Fortune's wheel, nor is Fortitude. So if you're wanting to plan a trip to these planes as part of your 5th edition campaign, you need to be ready to do some homebrewing on it. It is not part of the Turn of Fortune's wheel adventure. Your party won't go anywhere near it. So now that that's done, let's get into the 2nd edition stuff, because it doesn't mean anything to 5th edition. Real quick, just for shits and grins, because I like making fun of them. This is what 5th edition provided us for the outer plane of... let me get down to Fortitude, sorry. For Arcadia. What is Arcadia according to 5th edition? Arcadia thrives with orchards of perfectly lined trees, ruler straight streams, orderly fields, perfect roads, and cities laid out in geometrically pleasing shapes. Appearance is everything. Order and appearance, it's still, has a lot of emphasis here. Everything on Arcadia works towards the common good and a flawless form of existence. Here, purity is eternal and nothing intrudes on harmony, okay? Night and day are determined by an orb that floats across the highest peak. Yeah, basically the sun, the night and day orb kind of rotate. We'll talk about that when we get there. There is no dawn and dusk. It's bright and it's dark. Law, chaos, good, bad, just perfectly ordered. The weather in Arcadia is governed by 4 allied demigods called the Storm Kings, the Cloud King, Wind Queen, Lightning Queen, King, and Raid Queen. Each lives in a castle surrounded by the type of weather the king or queen controls. Just so you know, that's a reference to the Chinese pantheon. We'll get onto that here in a second. Hidden below Arcadia's beautiful mountains are numerous dwarven kingdoms that have withstood the passage of millennia. Dwarves born on this place have the celestial type and are always brave and kind-hearted. Otherwise, they look and behave like other dwarfs. Okay, that's it. That's everything the 5th edition book is going to tell you about going through the other side of the Gate Town. So if that's the only information I have as a Dungeon Master, I'm not touching Fortitude and I'm not touching Arcadia. It just doesn't sound like there's anything to do there. And this is where I'm going to look you in the camera and say you're wrong. Okay, Arcadia is probably one of the most interesting of the lawful outer planes, of the good outer planes. Let's shift it there. Because Arcadia is a plane in flux. As we get into the 2nd book, this is Planes of Law book number 3 from the Planes of Law box set originally launched in as part of the Planescape line in 1995. I guess this was a 7-book box set. It was pretty thick. But yeah, whereas we had 2 paragraphs dedicated to the plane in the 5th edition book, we have 30 plus pages dedicated to the plane in the 2nd edition book. So we're going to dig into it. You're seeing this Ant-Man on the cover. There's this group of creatures called Formians. I don't think they made the jump to 5e. Let me see real quick. I don't think they have, but we'll look. Nope, no Formians. That's okay. Don't need them. Think gigantic ant people. Ant centaurs is what they're also referred to back in yon day. So the greater good of Arcadia is what is called. Rolling fields, gently sloped valleys, where well-ordered orchards produce fruit of the perfect size and texture. Everything here works towards the common good, a flawless form of existence. In the land of perfect good, nothing intrudes on harmony, at least better not, or it's going to get killed. Anyone of chaotic or evil persuasion might want to think twice before coming to Arcadia. The people can detect alignment, which is what we talked about a little bit earlier, and there's a very militant force there to either convert you, eject you, or kill you. Therein lies the rub why Arcadia is such a dangerous plane in flux. If you caught my last series, we talked about Mechanus and a layer of Mechanus that was actually absorbed from Arcadia, where the goodness of Arcadia went so far into lawfulness that it became not good, it became neutral. We're following law for law's sake. An entire layer of Arcadia shifted over to Mechanus. You can kind of see if you look at the artwork here where this big ass chunk is missing. This is the modern rendition of the art, respecting the idea that Fortitude itself may have faded off and a layer of Arcadia is no longer attached to it in canon. Again, I respect the 5th edition publication the more I read about it, from the simple fact it doesn't do anything to invalidate the older content. In a lot of places, it supports the 2nd edition content, or it leaves it entirely alone to make it up to us to include it. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing. But yeah, there is visual representation in 5th edition that Arcadia things are not well, okay? If a body's lawful and good, there's very little for them to worry about while they move around the plane. The roads are straight, the streams are straight, the fields are perfect, all the grass grows to a certain height. Even the trees grow in perfect lines, and when they bend at their branches, the bends are almost symmetrical as you go down. It's like almost a maddeningly drive you insane level of symmetry and beauty and order within Arcadia. Whereas Limba or Mechanus is order for order's sake. There's no care for aesthetics. There's no value placed on anything other than order or function in Mechanus. However, Arcadia considers itself good, and in the eyes of them, good is also equated to beauty, to appearance, to behavior, all of that. So this is definitely a skin deep, beauty is only skin deep type thing, but ugly goes to the bone. That's how they feel here. You better be pretty, because if you're ugly, it must go all the way to your bone. So there's a lot of that to manage as a dungeon master. You're going to be right off day one really hammering home the physical impurities, the appearances, the flaws of your players as they walk through Fortitude and Arcadia, and it's not like, oh, you're evil, unless they are evil, and then yeah, you gotta playing the plane as it is. The moment they're moving around, your players are moving around within Fortitude or Arcadia, if there is reason for someone to doubt their alignment, it's an automatically cast spell. So keep that in mind as a dungeon master if you're preparing your group to move through Arcadia for a specific adventure or mission. Provide them with an amulet of proof against detection or location, something to mask their alignment if that's going to be an issue, because it's an automatic detect within the plane, okay? 5e book talked about the Storm Kings. We do have the Rain King, the Lightning King, the Cloud King, all of that. They weren't actually named, so I do apologize. That's a different group that I was thinking of. The Shilong and the Celestial Bureaucracy. We're not worried about that. But yeah, there is reference to the Kings of the Storms. The Storm King is the Cloud King, half elf. Okay, so these are actually petitioners, people at some point in time that died, transitioned up, and through the course of celestial mechanics and rebirth have become the kings, the Storm Kings and Queens, controlling the weather in Arcadia. This is the section about magic conditions, what spells are or are not affected. Always remember, this is optional rules for 5th edition, but these were standard things for 2nd edition. Certain magic didn't work. Summoning spells would only bring X, Y, or Z into it. Divinations used to determine the course of a group larger than 4 people are effective here, because it's the greater good. If you cast a divination spell that says, can I find the door? It's not going to help you. We don't care about you as an individual in Arcadia anymore. Arcadia is not out about the individual. Arcadia is about the group, the greater good. So anything that's done for an individual's benefit usually is muted or doesn't work at all. If you can include the greater goodness of the group, the magic is likely to work and possibly be improved and intensified. Enchantment charm spells get an automatic save, and you get a bonus to the save. So enchantment charm spells are a little bit reduced. Illusions and phantasms do not work on the natives of the plane. Illusions cast in Arcadia are obviously illusions. Magic of a deceptive nature is not welcome here, and it shows in the plane's reaction to the spell. So if you try to put up an illusion, everyone's going to know it's fake. It's going to flicker, it's going to wave, it'll do something. But a creature native to the plane knows when they look at the illusion to know right away it's fake. Necromantic spells promoting the commonwealth and wheel. Remember, back in the day, healing spells used to be considered necromancy. So healing spells for using benefiting the greater good are twice as effective. Spells that raise the dead or kill will only work when they use for the common good, when they're defending a town or conquering in the name of good for the largest number. Necromantic spells will fail otherwise, etc., etc. Spell keys, power keys, these are things that are talked about heavily in 2nd edition Planescape. Basically a mechanism to say if you want your spells to work the right way, you need to make sure you have these spell keys, these arcane items that are attuned to the magic of that plane. A lot of logistics, a lot of tracking for there. I personally enjoy doing that. That adds a little bit of oomph to the outer planes, but your campaigns are going to vary. If you don't want to have your players have to track 16 different spell keys, 16 different power keys, and an infinite amount of portal keys, then yeah, you can go ahead and ignore this. You can look like a key ring out of Baldur's Gate 3, 117 keys on this motherfucker when it's all done. Excuse my language. But that's the pile of stuff you can get to if you decide to use spell keys, power keys, and gate keys. Logistics, planning, and preparation for you as a dungeon master to decide on before you implement any changes to the magic systems, okay? Arcadian items, just a quick listing of a couple magic items that are unique to the plane of Arcadia, if you want to port them together or not. And then we get into the inhabitants, the powers, the proxies, the petitioners, who lives here, what do they do, all that kind of stuff. So real quick, let's do the powers. We're doing good on time here. Remember, this is my caveat. 2nd edition Dungeons & Dragons was still reliant on including the pantheons of all of the world, okay? Including Norse mythology, Chinese mythology, Indian mythology, Babylonian, Sumerian, Celtic, etc. So the worldwide culture, the world culture was represented in 2nd edition in regards to the mythological deities. Those have been absolutely removed for 5th edition. There's nothing that says you can't, but 5th edition doesn't officially list. So take this listing of powers with that grain of salt. Decide on what pantheons you're using before you as you go through this. Do want that, don't want that. We've got Izanagi and Izanani, powers of land and creation. Lu Xing, the power of bureaucrats and rewards. And 4 Egyptian powers, Ra, Osiris, Isis, and Horus, all live out here in Arcadia. Azith of Toril lives here. Clangadin Silverbeard of the dwarves live here. Reorx, the patron of the dwarves of Kryn, live here. Miradar, the patron of the Mongol men, live here. And that's really kind of it for the quick, dirty listing. There's not a ton of deities, not a ton of powers here, because it's kind of a weird place. Lawful, neutral, with good tendencies. We are all about order, as long as the order is supporting the greater good. So yeah. Petitioners, proxies. Remember, proxies are people that have that are representatives, avatars of the lords, if you will. No, not avatar. Avatar would be an aspect. A trusted believer or a loyal follower that's imbued with extra divine power to carry forth the will of a given deity or power outside of their realm. That's the easiest way to describe a proxy. Every power is going to have a couple proxies. Typically, that's a rule that you can break as you want. Some won't. Some will have a lot. That's up to you to play with as a DM. And then the petitioners. This is what most of your players are going to interact with. These are the people that live on the plane. They appear as they did in their lives, though markedly more healthy and robust. Lots of people here without regard for color, height, age, or species. That's about as individual as they're going to get because they're fanatically devoted to making sure the common good of their home is maintained. They always patrol their plane looking for outsiders. They're the first people to ever accuse and approach an outsider of being an outsider. Now, the thing is, they have become so militant in it that the good is starting to peter out. The idea of the greater good to the point where the lesser of the good is trampled on is pushing the plane towards neutrality. According to the second edition book, that's the big main driving conflict within the Arcadia as an adventure source. The desire for there to be nothing but perfection, beauty, and common good has driven the folks on Arcadia to embrace very militant methods of enforcing this good. So they've lost sight. The only thing keeping Arcadia is still to focus on the greater good rather than the focus on law. Law and order and structure has become such an overriding thing. Well, if we all do this, then that will happen. That the plane is starting to drift into lawful land, into mechanists. Okay, so that's one of the big pushes here is the disruption of the plane due to their behavior has resulted in the third layer being lost to mechanists, and we talked about that a little bit in the previous episode. Go check out Automata to Mechanists if you want a little bit more information about it. So the petitioners here are a bunch of nosy, trouble-pecking, hen-pecking, looking for every flaw because a physical flaw or a behavior flaw is a sign of evil. And we need to get you either out of here or re-educated so you don't mess our plane up, because our plane is already messed up because part of it went to mechanists. That means there's too much evil here, so we have to double down our efforts to make sure everyone is good. But in doubling their efforts, they're becoming more militant. They're becoming more lawfully oriented, which is driving pieces of Arcadia closer to mechanists. So it's an interesting concept. It's kind of that catch-22. Because of their beliefs, they've been pushed into this situation. But if they change their beliefs, it's an interesting thing. This is where planar philosophy, good and evil philosophy, lawful philosophy becomes materialized. A lot of times we kind of talk about Planescape and some of the higher concepts and what do they really mean in gameplay mechanics? Or are we just sitting around and talking smack and turning into philosophers? Both. They are the philosophical ideas that are very important. There are philosophical ideas that are very important to Planescape. The ideas of belief, the ideas of alignment, the ideas of that. But this is a perfect example of suddenly these mechanisms driving gameplay mechanics. An entire layer, an infinite layer of an infinite plane has shifted to another plane because of their adherence to law and order. The flaws that they have put in themselves are only magnifying in their panic to secure their realm, breaking their realm up even more. Here's where it gets challenging is how does a group of players go in here and change this? Can they? I don't know. There are 3 layers in Arcadia. The first layer is, what is the first one? Abellio. The second one is Buxenus. And the third one is actually gone. Nemesis. It's actually part of Mechanus. And we talked about that last episode. Go check it out. So this part of the book gets us into geographic features. Okay, I got it, DMGeezerjim. We know about we understand the mentality here. We understand the conflicts here. We understand there's a bunch of Karens and a bunch of Kevins running this plane, and how does that manifest itself into gameplay mechanics? A little more challenging. It's a little bit heavy lifting for your DM, and this is where I'm going to kind of say spoiler. Some of the resolutions are going to be a little icky. Adventures in Arcadia are either of the rebellious nature. We're here to kick ass and chew bubblegum. We add a bubblegum. We're going to here to bring a little bit of chaos to your lives. In which case, everything is an adventure here. Everything is a potential for roleplay, combat, evasion, chases, all of that. So if your party comes into Arcadia hostile, There's not going to be any shortage of fights for them. As a matter of fact, they will likely be destroyed if they come in heavy. So keep that in mind. One of the locations they talk about is Mandible. Mandible is the home of the Formians, which are called centaur ants and other things. Did not make the cut for 5th edition, so you probably have to do some home brewing if you choose to use Mandible. The main thing about this is it's just a strange alien city. It's a small little town above that's got a bunch of tunnels below that a bunch of these ant people, back half is ant, like the upright, think Thri-kreen with an ant. Yeah, best thing to say. Think about a Thri-kreen upper body with the ant half ass, or the back half of the ant. Okay. Now, real quick spoiler: Mandible only matters because they got in a fight with a bronze dragon and they stole a bronze dragon's egg. So it's kind of might makes right. The bronze dragon landed, crushed a building, killed a queen egg. Wasn't on purpose. 4 Morians got pissed off, followed the brass dragon back to its home, stole one of its eggs. So there's this big drama thing building up between the town of Mandible and Brass Dragon. That's all you really need to worry about as far as that. It is a trade place. It's somewhere your party can go and find resources, find supplies, find a night's rest. And it's not quite as militant as the rest of the plane. For the simple fact that your players are not Formians when they show up, separates them from the Formians. You're weird, you're different, but that's okay. You're not one of us, so we can't judge you quite yet. So the ant people within the town of Mandible are probably some of the least judgmental creatures within the plane of Arcadia. The next realm we're going to look at is Marduk. This is just solution to Marduk, the I want to say Babylonian god, the slayer of dragons. Marduk and Tiamat was one of the old Sumerian myths Babylonian myths, that's made its way forward through time. We still use Tiamat. We don't use Marduk or Gilgamesh or any of that anymore. Whatever. That's okay. So Marduk is the literary foil to the D&D version of Tiamat. Yeah. A lot of talk here about how dragons can't move around in Marduk's realm. He'll hunt them down. That kind of thing. Not a ton going on. Mount Clangeddon adds a little bit of unique nature to the plane, it's the realm of a dwarven god, Clangeddon Silverbeard, the dwarven god of battles. Has a 30,000 foot tall mountain that's been completely hollowed out and turned into a giant dwarf home. So if you want to, leaning into the dwarf pantheons, leaning into dwarf lifestyles, all of that, you can get into this as well. Lots of really cool stuff to buy here. Probably some of the best weapons in the world are in the multiverse created here, but typically they're reserved for the dwarves that are going into their eternal battles. Okay? Buxenus is the second layer. It's considered the mustering ground, as it were. There's a lot of hidden camps, training camps. We would call them concentration or indoctrination camps in modern terminology. But we'll get to those in a second. The first thing to keep in mind, first realm here is Azuth. Azuth of Toril, Forgotten Realms, the god of mages, has a small realm here on Buxenus in Arcadia. One thing that's different about Azuth is he doesn't care what alignment you are if you're a wizard. Anyone who uses wizardly magic is welcome here, whether they're good or evil, lawful or chaotic. As long as they agree to abide by the rules established here, they are given safe haven. Okay? All wizardly magic in Azuth works normally, even though spells are normally unavailable in Arcadia. It's a realm of magic, and Azuth has decreed there's no limiting the flow of wizardry within his realm. However, anyone who uses magic intentionally to harm another in the realm is subject to Azuth's wrath. The form of punishment is directly related to the form of attack. If someone strikes an enemy with a magic missile spell, the realm of Azuth shoots the magic missiles back at the person that shot him. It won't heal the wounded party, but it will at least cause a little bit of recourse. If someone shoots you, the realm will shoot them back to try to keep you from escalating into a nasty war type of thing. So all kinds of magic stuff. If you're needing that special storehouse of magical items and loots and lore, Azuth and his realm might provide that. The next one we're going to look at real quick is Heliopolis. Heliopolis, Ra, Osiris, Isis, Horus, your Egyptian pantheon, rule in this realm. Lots of information given about Ra, the sun god, Osiris, the keeper of the dead, Horus, the avenger, Isis, the queen mother of life, etc., etc. Your Egyptian pantheon is represented here. A lot of information given to make this realm an Egyptian theme. So if you're wanting to lean into an Egyptian themed campaign, but you don't feel right suddenly turning part of the Forgotten Realms into Egypt because it's not Egypt, you can scoot yourself on up to Arcadia and take your party to Heliopolis and do a absolutely from beginning to end Egyptian themed campaign with the gods themselves not too far away. The Tripartite realms have special rules governing them. For example, undead can't venture into Ra's realm under any circumstance, but Osiris will let is a realm of reverence for dead. As long as the undead aren't evil, they're able to be here. It's not uncommon to see mummies wandering through the lands of Osiris, but they can't be evil mummies. Rather, undead who've returned to mete out their vengeance on the despoilers of their graves, or anyone like a revenant who's cursed into their situation. They don't have their special powers. They don't generate fear, mummy rot. A vampire won't drain any levels. Two types of undead that live in the realm of Osiris: those who wish for a return to their normal mortal lives, and those who are looking to complete some sort of quest after which they leave their realms. So Osiris is kind of maybe one of those gathering places. If you ever wanted to play an undead themed campaign, everyone wakes up dead, but not like dead, but like undead, you can roll them out of Osiris and go from there. The 3rd edition book, Liber Mortis, has a ton of content for your players to play as undead in a campaign. You know, we don't just have to use the Dampier from Ravenloft. We don't have to all be fucking Twilight, vampire, or werewolf. There's a lot of content out there for us in D&D. As fun as it is to use pop culture, you know, although to be fair, anyone that ends up running as a Dampier always gets laughed at. You know, at least at my tables, no one runs Dampiers or shapeshifters anymore because of the Twilight, the Twilight curse. Okay, Edward. I'm not Edward. Yeah, you are Edward. You're sparkly vampire boy. It's okay. But anyway, personal opinion aside, the realm of Osiris is really well staged and set up to run that kind of campaign, to dip your toes into playing around with what is life like after death. We all wake up as rotted corpses, but we're not evil. Osiris can provide that launching point from there. Yeah. Couple cities that are detailed here and there. Melodia. Melodia is a town, description of a town that's ran by the Harmonium. The main thing about Melodia is this is the headquarters of the Harmonium away from Sigil. Each one of the 14 factions within Sigil have a headquarters within Sigil itself, but also have what's called a home plane. An outer plane may not necessarily be outer, some of them are inner. One of the greater planes that the faction aligns itself with philosophically and draws some of their power from. So in the case of the Harmonium, lawful good to the fault of you're following my rules or I'm killing you, Arcadia is naturally going to gravitate towards this. So you have Melodia, which is the town, and then we have what's called training camps. Basically, the Harmonium got scared when it's a chicken or egg thing. The Harmonium felt that maybe people that are evil hadn't been given a fair shake at life. So they start what are called training camps. The Harmoniums would select the Hardheads, Harmonium faction, would capture, steal, not necessarily kidnap, would legally acquire chaotic and evil people, and rather than putting them to death, they would offer them an opportunity at redemption. They would move these people to these training camps to prove that chaos and evil could be overcome with enough regimented structure. Sounds more lawful than it does sound good, doesn't it? So, in doing so, setting up lots of these training camps and moving through, bringing evil and chaos into the realm of pure lawful neutrality and good, destabilized part of the realms. And that's what caused the 3rd layer to drift away. Ironheart, I always pronounce it badly. The 3rd layer is, Nemesis, excuse me, Nemesis, not Nemesis, Nemesis, excuse me. Nemesis is now part of Mechanus because this is where the Harmonium were conducting all of their camps. They bring all this chaos, all this evil into the 3rd layer, hidden ostensibly and the chaotic nature and the evil nature of all of these thousands of people shifted the plane. So rather than trying to touch them with good, they hit them with sticks, they hit them with law, they hit them with order. Well, now that section of Arcadia doesn't even care about the greater good anymore. It just cares about law. So that entire layer shifted to Mechanus. So the panic that then ensued by the hardheads is, oh crap, we need to protect our lair. We need to get more lawful, neutral, good people here. So they're repeating their mistake by bringing more in and trying to convert them, and possibly going to cost themselves a section of the second layer as well. Okay? So, the third layer of Arcadia technically no longer exists. It's transmigrated to Mechanus, where the governors and Modrons keep a close eye on it. It's still got some good tendencies, but the constant attempts by the Harmonium and other inhabitants to take it back are so often flavored with evil and selfishness that the lair is not in any danger of returning anytime soon. What that's saying is the Harmonium wants that lair back because it belongs to them. That's ours. That's an evil, selfish push. So the lair is not going anywhere. So your nemesis can still be reached by gates in Arcadia, but all the Norn portals are watched even more now than they were before. Besides, Nemesis is the site of the greatest defeat of the Hardheads, and they don't want anyone knowing about it. So keep that in mind. There is this underground nasty connection between Mechanus and Arcadia, and it's a perfect example of belief and behavior shifting the outer planes. Even though the outer planes are considered infinite in nature and infinite in power, that's only in relation to us mortals, the players, the material world. Against each other, they still have to follow the same rules. So if your section of Arcadia is behaving in a not good way, but in a lawful way, it's going to shift over. And there are stories throughout second edition Planescape where layers shifted from like lawful good to lawful evil entirely. But we'll get into those as we get around the wheel a little bit more. Okay, we're going to close out these last few minutes talking about a few adventure hooks that were given as part of the book. The Scrambled Eggs, I mentioned this one earlier. The Formians, the ant centaurs, as it were, stole a brass... was it a brass or bronze? I'm going to find out for sure. Bronze dragon. Mistakenly sat on the ground above a Formarian city, destroying the caverns beneath it. Even more unfortunately, one of these caves happened to hold a queen's choice egg. Basically, the queen of the Formarians said this is going to be the next queen, and said dragon accidentally crushed it. Okay, once they followed the dragon back to their lair, stole the dragon's egg, and brought it back to their city. They're not sure if they're going to destroy it in an equal recomp or if they're holding it hostage. There's a certain section of the Formians that are even convinced to, let's hatch the egg and raise the egg and maybe it'll be a pet and like a guardian for our hive. That ain't going to happen. Honestly, this is a very dialogue-driven encounter. Your party's got to figure out which of these two is in the right, even both are right and both are wrong, and help negotiate a settlement between the two. Because if they don't, they're going to go to war. And odds are the dragon's just going to stomp shit all over these poor little ant guys, and the dragon's then going to get hunted out of the plane. So if the players can't help both groups come to an amicable compromise, both groups will suffer. The Formians will get stomped out of existence. The bronze dragon might get hunted and killed because it did something evil. Worst case scenario, it has to leave its lair and everything and its nest and go find a new home on another plane. Excuse me. The outcomes are bad for both groups unless your party can convince them to work together in some sort of way. Couple solutions given. Don't want to go too far into the depth on that. You and your players have some fun with that. Very much an RP-driven campaign or adventure. The next one is called Chase. The idea here is your party is chasing a target, a rogue, or whatever, thief, spy, doesn't matter. Have fun with it. For whatever reason, your players are in Sigil. They've been given a contract to run down this person named Alina Startread. And for whatever reason, they're on her trail. DMs have fun coming up with the why, but that's the mission. So the party's going to pursue Alina, but the thing is, Alina has actually been doing a really good job pretending to be a harmonium, pretending to be a hardhead. So she's actually going to retreat from the party, give them the bird, say, fuck you, come chase me to Arcadia, and walks through the portal like it ain't no big deal. So all of a sudden the Harmonium are like, no, you can't come through here. No, man, that's one of ours. We know her. We don't know you. Screw you. Well, she's evil. How dare you say that? So the party has to basically make their way through the underground tunnels to connect from Arcadia to the second layer where their Alina is hunting. So your party is going to have an encounter with creatures that don't exist yet. Buseni, second edition, shadow morphing, horrifying creatures that can, as they hurt you, they don't physically hurt you, they destroy your soul. They eat your soul and your body's left wandering around as just an empty husk until the body finally collapses because it didn't know to eat, drink, or anything else. Horrible way to go. But these Buseni are here to guard the tunnels, and if you don't have reason to go through here, we're going to stop you. Your party might be able to talk to them. If you are using factions, your party's part of the Harmonium, they can possibly bypass this encounter as well. But at the end of the day, it's a pretty tough combat encounter. So once they finally get there, again, they have to have the evidence to prove that Alina is who they said they are. So this is prep side stuff, guys. Dungeon Master, if you choose to use this chase adventure, make sure that you've laid out the case for the players on the front end. They can't just show up at the end of it and go, she's guilty, prove it. The guy that hired us said she's guilty. GTFO, you lose. And your players lose. But eventually, if they're able to present their case in a well enough format, then they'll get the body of the person back and get sent back. But that's, just kind of the conflicts of Arcadia. Don't want to go too much into it. It's an interesting realm in the fact that it's lawful neutral with good tendencies, but it borders on evil. Evil in the sense of oppression. Evil in the sense of conform or die. Okay? So plane of the Arcadia is definitely a plane that's just on the cusp of drifting into Mechanus, into lawful neutral land. This should not be a comfortable place for your players to go. If you choose to use Arcadia, remember, it's a land of Karens and Kevins. There can be a lot of tension. There can be a lot of conflicts and plot points that arise if you set adventures in Arcadia. I would dare say this is one of your more flexible, good aligned planes to allow a group to come in and be a little bit morally ambiguous, because the plane's adherence to lawful good, to goodness of the community through law has already shifted them a little bit away from their ideals. So it's a huge playground for for you to really get into some moral implications and all that kind of stuff. But hey, I'm gonna go ahead and close this video up. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, just a last little quick bibliography. We were looking at Planes of Law, Book 3 from the Planes of Law box set in 2nd edition Planescape. We took a quick glance at the player's primer to the Outlands, also available in 2nd edition. We took a look at the Planescape Adventures in the Multiverse as published by 5th edition. And we also looked at the DM guide in regards to outer plane information for Arcadia. So between the 4 sources, we learned the 5e sources are just enough to get you interested maybe, but not enough to build on. The 2e sources, there's a ton of information, but there's a lot of nuance in going to running adventures in Arcadia. I enjoy it. I love the idea of putting your players in a place where appearance, behavior, and beauty is a reflection of your internal soul. And if you're not crossing any of those lines, you must be flawed, you must be bad. Therefore, we must either chase you out of here or change you into our way. So you've got an infinite plane full of an infinite amount of people that are sharing that mindset. Man, that's a huge source of conflict, a huge source of adventure. Your players can get in there and maybe they have to save the plane by acting chaotic and keeping the entire plane from tipping over into Mechanus, destabilizing the entire cosmic wheel. These are the kind of the big things that can end up ultimately going from just short adventure to big campaign. But hey, thank you for your time. DMGeezerjim here, going to continue on our tour of the Outer Wheel. We're going to go from Gate Town to Outer Plane. And I think next up is actually Mount Celeste. Let me look. Not yet. No, we got to say, oh yeah, it is Mount Celeste. We have Excelsior and Mount Celeste. So my next episode will be Lawful Good for Lawful Good's sake, for the good of the goods. Okay. But thank you so much for your time. Appreciate everything. Likes, follows, subscribes are always appreciated. If you ever want to talk about this stuff in lifetime, at real time, join me over on Twitch. The bio's down here on the YouTube page. I'm there 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, Monday to Friday. Just chatting D&D. If you've enjoyed these videos, you want to engage me directly, join us over on Twitch, man. We'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, feel free to leave comments, questions, concerns in the comments here, and we'll be working on the series going forward. Thank you for your time. You guys be safe out there. Take care.